Welcome to today's episode of Two Pigs in a Pod, a podcast for the people of glazing by the people of glazing. I'm George Lewis, editor at the People in Glazing Society, or more commonly known as PiGs, and I'm your host. Our guest today is a person that needs no introduction. It's Rob McGlennon. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me, George. Good to see you again since our last venture together on the
I
high
know,
seas.
which was the most perfect press strip that I've ever had in my life, which I'm sure we'll come on to it in a little while. But yeah, we'll start off with the question we always ask is who you are and what you're best known for in this industry.
Okay, well, my name's Rob McGlennon, and I've been in the industry for just a few months shy of 40 years. So I think what longevity gives you and experience gives you a bit of wisdom. So I've spent 40 years in the industry, had a long stretch with the Laird Group, 10 years, then 15 years with the Epwin Group, and lastly, 11 years with Deceuninck, which is a global business. And we've had a lot of fun there. I made a lot of progress there.
Nice. And when you spoke about your first role, what was the industry like back then when you first started? Was it very different to how it is now?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I started just 84, 85, and it was like the Wild West, to be honest with you. And there were a lot of them around as well. So
Yeah.
it was full of characters. That's one thing as we progress through this. I think the industry is missing. We're missing characters. There were a lot of characters. There were a lot of people that did things right, and a lot of people that did things wrong. And the ones that did them wrong are not here anymore. But no, it's been a great industry, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my 40 years in it.
Yeah. And what first enticed you into the industry? You know, you like you said, it was a different world back then in the industry. Like what was it that first piqued your interest of saying you want to work in it?
Being honest, it was the fact that I realised I was married. I had 2 young children, and I needed more money. I didn't pick the window industry, surprisingly enough. The window industry picked me.
Yeah.
So I kind of ended up in it in an ad hoc fashion. But I'm a people person. I like to talk. I like to get on with people and hopefully get on with most people. And this is definitely a people business. And that's what attracted to me to stay in it for such a long time.
Yeah, and do you think those relationships were, you had to spend a lot of time working on them over the years, to keep not only yourself, obviously the work going and your relationships, but actually to keep your interest in the industry?
Oh, very much so. I'm very much a relationship person as well. When you build a business, it's all about quality service, and then most importantly, the people that you're dealing with, the customers. And if your customers are getting excellent quality and excellent service, as long as you pin that then with a form of partnership or relationship, you've got a recipe for success, which we've eloquently demonstrated through Deceuninck.
Yeah, nice. And I'm sure you've had a lot of advice, good and bad, over the years from senior people and from people from outside. What's the best piece of advice you ever got, maybe at the start of your career or something that you sort of learned later on in your career?
Well, I'm obviously looking at the hair color a bit old fashioned in some of the ways that I think. Um, but I was told once, under promise and over deliver. So I've
Nice.
made that my motto. So whenever we've got to the budgeting period, I always like to. I think my boss Bernard in Belgium used to call it sandbagging. Well, we weren't sandbagging. We just didn't want to come completely clean on things, something that wouldn't happen shortly.
Yeah.
So it's managing expectations. But that was from the guy that owned the Epwin Group,
Yeah.
and who's no longer with us. But I learned a lot there. I learned how to sell when I was in the Laird Group. I learned how to make money when I was in the Epwin Group,
Yeah.
and blended the two things together when I got to Koenig.
Okay. And you said about, selling the industry, selling the products. That has that changed over the years? As the sort of the expectations from customers changed, or your approach to your customers changed over the years?
Massively. I mean, it was very basic back in the sort of early mid 80s.
Yeah.
But if you look at the products today, they're so much more advanced, and the performance is so much better. The way that we're generally fitting, we do a better installation, whether it could be commercial or whether it be retail. The performance is there. When you look at journals, when you look at magazines, the whole market has become far more professional as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. The advertisements in magazines, things like this podcast, where you're talking to people that have got a lot of experience. All of these sorts of things hopefully will make it more attractive for younger people to come, because our industry does need new blood.
Yeah, and you said about things changing over the years. I think this probably goes without saying, but has the products changed a lot over the years, and has that made it easier or harder to sell?
Um, the products have changed massively, as I said, in terms of performance. I think we're all waiting for the guidelines to come up for government for the next round of building regs, which is frustrating. But in this country last year, we will have moved 15 million windows. It's still a significant market. Our market is stable. When I've been at Deceuninck, other countries in Europe are not stable right now for various political reasons. So we've actually got a good platform to begin progressive growth. And with all of the enhancements that have been brought out through aesthetics, through colour, through performance, security, it does make you wonder where it's all going to go in the future. But everything morphs, doesn't it? But right now there are some fantastic products available for the consumer.
Yeah, and do you feel, or did you feel when you was at Deceuninck and previous to that, that glazing, windows and doors were a bit underappreciated within the sort of the wider construction sector? You say, 15 million units sold in the next year. That's a lot. That's a big chunk. But do you feel like that was maybe undervalued by some sort of higher up, government wide? That actually that we're not a big fish, but actually we probably are.
I don't think the construction industry has treated fenestration with the respect that it should do. What can you do to a brick? I don't know, not a lot. What can you do to a block? Not a lot. What can you do to a wooden truss? Not a lot. I mean, I suppose they have in their ways, but our products, the way that they've progressed over the years has been very significant. And whether our products go into new build, in new construction, but commercial, retail, for the trade market, we are putting out the best performing products we've ever put out. That's for all of the competitors in our sector.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just I feel like we speak about it a lot on the podcast of sort of knowing what we have in our industry of how good some of the products are and some of the people and some of the companies, but actually we can't sort of break that, excuse the pun, break that glass ceiling to to shout about it more, to be more widespread.
I think, well, a lot of that, George, can be laid at the doors of the people that create the race to the bottom. So we've got to stay away from the race to the bottom. Other sectors, the guys in the kitchens, bathrooms, they've got it right. They're selling value. You have to sell value. What's the point in putting all the investment into products, improving the security, improving the aesthetics, improving all of the performance, and then to not sell it for the right price? That bit I just don't understand. So we need to be selling value and maximizing what we get for our products so that we can reinvest and continue to make things better.
Yeah. And you said a few months off, 40 years in the industry. Do you feel that you're now in that position to, give that a piece of advice, the advice you got from managers previously? Are you in that position to want to be able to pass on your words of wisdom and the stuff you've lived through your career to the next generation?
Absolutely, and I'll do that in any which way anybody wants me to do. I mean, I have retired from full-time employment, which it's early days, but I can recommend it to people. Um, but I've got projects running with a number of people, so I'm assisting them with their businesses because I've got a lot of experience in turning businesses around. And I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to get involved in any which way that I can to make this industry more appealing to younger people. because we need new blood. We need people to come in and work in the factories. We need in assembly. We need extrusion people at Deceuninck. We need people to operate our foiling lines, to make windows, to install windows, right through the plethora of our organisations. We need new people, and actually, we need to bang the drum on that louder than ever, because my feeling is over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see significant increases in business. There's a massive amount of new construction that's not outlined by the government, but the construction companies make money out of building houses and selling them. They need to do that, so we need to supply the windows for that. There'll be a plethora of commercial contracts for refurbishment that need developing. The water's being held tight on that. All of these things are going to need to start to happen before long. We need to build new homes for all of our visitors that we've got now over the last 10 or 20 years that we weren't expecting. The infrastructure, hospitals, all those sorts of things. So there's a massive amount of work ahead of us. And I'm not sure that the industry is going to be able to cope with it when it starts, because it's going to be like COVID all over again.
Yeah. And do you think that we spoke off air about that sort of that long term planning instead of sort of thinking short term at the moment? We're in a pretty tough year, and last year was pretty tough for a lot of people. But do you think that it's important to start planning for those sort of things happening now?
Absolutely. I'll just say, I don't think last year was a tough year, and I don't think this year is going to be a tough year, because if you take the COVID years out of the scenario, last year was a bit like 18 or 19.
Yeah,
This year is going to be a bit like last year. And I've had a few conversations over the last couple of weeks with people, and it's sort of, oh dear, it's not very busy. We're
yeah,
struggling. And guess what? In 40 years, everybody's been saying that in quarter 1 for those 40 years. So
yeah,
nothing's changed. And nobody prepares or makes plans for when business turns down in the first quarter. And that's what you need to do. And then you won't be in this environment. There's last year, as I said earlier, there's 15 million windows and doors that were sold last year. So if you're making 200 windows a week and selling 200 windows a week, work out what you do in a year and find out what your market percentage is, your market share out of 15 million. You've
mm,
got an awful lot of opportunity, haven't you?
yeah, yeah,
That's the way
definitely.
to think about it. Stop worrying about what's not happening and start creating activity.
Yeah, nice. And going back to the next generation, and potentially nurturing the next generation, what key skills do you think that you've seen throughout your career, or in yourself, that are needed within our industry to to keep it going, to go into a better future?
Well, there are obviously there are. I've been in it a long time. There are people that have owned businesses. They've either sold them to new ownership, new entrepreneurs, or members of the family have taken over the running of those organisations. And some of them are doing a fantastic job, I have to say, and others are not quite so fantastic, but they're holding their head above water. Um, nobody's going to give you anything in life. You only get what you put into it. So if you decide to knuckle down and work hard, it is amazing what comes back. But you have got to work harder than everybody else. There's no room to coast in this industry anymore. But actually, George, if you look at any industry, there's no room for coasters. You've got to work.
Yeah. And do you think that there is that skills gap? We speak about it so much on the podcast and in conversation, that skills gap within our industry. Did you see it? Did you feel it in when you was at Deceuninck? And if so, like how do we attract people into this industry? It's we talk about it a lot, but like, how do we do it? How do we do it?
Well, I think it's a really good question. And I think the industry has spoilt itself over the last 25 years. If you needed somebody, if you needed a technician, or if you needed a sales guy, the first place you'd look is the competitors and see whether you could pull somebody. So it's all short termism, isn't it? Short termism. We need to set our stall out. I don't think the industry does anything to attract young people, if I'm honest. People talk about it, but I don't think they're doing anything about it. Um, you look at the average age group of people in fenestration, most of them will be 50 plus. So we need to bring people in. I'm not so sure. You'll be closer to this than me, I think, but it's not very often you find people that in their early 20s that are ambitious and dynamic. That comes a little bit later on. And then when people end up with more and more to pay for, in other words, they get a mortgage or a family or whatever, that's when the dynamism starts to come out, because by one way or another, they need to find a way of making more money. Um, and listen, you can still make a lot of money in this business. So that's the bit that should be shared with younger people. You know, nobody's going to give it to you on day one, but if you work hard, find yourself a good team, play hard in that team, play professionally, work through the ranks, and eventually it'll come your way if you're a good soldier. When I was younger, a lot of things that you learn when you're younger come out in later life. When I was younger, I used to play rugby, and it very very quickly dawned on me that unlike soccer, it's unlikely that you're going to get from one end of the pitch in rugby to the other without your mate. So that's called teamwork, right? Well, if you surround yourself with good people in a job, guess what? Life becomes easier. That doesn't mean you can coast. It just means you can do dynamic things. Um, I think you're going to go on to ask me about Deceuninck, but when I first got to Deceuninck UK, it had been spoiled. There wasn't a lot of business. The people that were there looked beaten. And over that 11-year period, we brought it from, I'm talking about euros because we reported everything in euros, but we took it from, bear in mind, when people said life was difficult, we took it from 15 million euros to 63 million euros, right? But that we were a team of people that all know each other, all trusted each other, and that cascaded right through the business. Everybody in the business, because Calne, where Deceuninck UK is based, is kind of remote. It's quite close to Swindon, but nobody seems to want to drive those 15 miles to get there. Um, but we did a fantastic job, and it's not me, I was the leader, but it's the team. It's the team effort. Everybody knew what they were doing. Everybody knew what their place was. And I think if you can try and instigate that into your business, you're in a far better position to get from A to B.
Yeah. And what do you think those, you said about that teamwork, like how do you work on that? Not everyone is obviously destined to be with one another. It might take a while for me it's to take working with you to feel comfortable, for me to trust you, and vice versa. How do you work on that? Do you just understand the role, and sort of deep dive into the industry, and the products, and things like that? How do you work on that teamwork to make the dream work, I guess?
Okay, so, well, I'm only talking about my way of doing things, but I always lead from the front. Okay, so I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself. And actually, everybody that I've worked with in the past, I've never told anybody to do anything. I've always asked them in a way that they feel obliged to do it. So there's have much more humility with your people, and you get far more respect out of them. Um, the teamwork thing, if I'm the leader and I'm leading from the front, and we've got new people that join, you can't micromanage people. Half the reason I've turned out the way that I have was because when I was quite young, myself and a colleague of mine, Chris, were micromanaged by somebody who was nuts, basically. And that taught me never to enter that realm. So if you're being micromanaged, move, because there's a problem with the management culture. Um, but obviously, there may be a reason why you were micromanaged. So figure that one out as well.
How do you work as a team? Not everyone is destined to sort of fall into their place. Some people have got a personally work at themselves to work as part of a team. Sort of what kind of key skills are you looking for that they can work on themselves to manage to have a successful career like you have?
I think, well, you need confidence for a start. There's got to be trust. Part of the teamwork thing is, we've employed people that have never been in the fenestration industry, and we brought them in. And you have a sales meeting. When you go for a sales meeting, you talk about what's happened and what's likely to happen. So there's a learning there. Then when you're actively in the role, if you don't know something, you ask your teammate. Your teammate's going to help you because you're a new part of the team and your teammate wants you to do well. So then you end up with the mutual respect thing. And, you know, we weren't looking for, what's the word I'm looking for? We weren't looking for people that were going to be selfish. We were looking for the team approach. So if it took 3 people to get something over the line, we'd put 3 or 4 people on it. If one maverick thought he could do it on his own, then he needs to make sure that he does it. So, but it's all part of the blend of the culture of the business, and you can feel cultures in business when you walk into them. The way that when you walk around assemblies, when you walk around fabrication or extrusion or a foiling area, there's unity. If a thing's working well, there's unity, and you can feel that in the culture of the business.
Yeah. And what advice, you say you're happy to give advice about, starting off in this industry. If someone come up to you, at an event, and said, I'm looking to get into the industry, like one, how do I go about it? And two, sort of what can I do to get into it? Like sort of how do you sell it to them first? And what pieces of advice would you give them to, someone right at the start of their career?
Well, be honest, be direct,
Yeah.
want to be part of some teamwork, understand partnership, and the entrepreneurial bit, because everybody's got entrepreneurial skills. It's whether they decide to follow them or not.
Yeah.
Um, and that's down to your manager to pull those things out of you and find out what your weaknesses and strengths are. Not in a controlling manner, but just so that they can use you in the best means possible within the
Yeah.
business. And listen, if you're in a business and you're getting stressed, change it. Everybody loves to say, it's very stressful. Well, change it, because you need to change roles on a number of occasions. You're picking up experience from people and from environments and from cultures. So if you're stressed, change it, because there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You, I think you somewhere along the line in these questions, I looked at them briefly earlier, and you said, describe the industry in 3 words. And I
Yeah.
know you'll be able to take this question out later on. And I thought about that. And the fenestration industry is challenging, it's rewarding, and throughout nearly 40 years, it's been fun, because I make it fun, because people react better when things are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I've got a couple of bottles of wine under the desk or anything like that. That means just have a better outlook on life, and try and instill a bit of fun, have a laugh and a joke. Some of the things we've got up to over the years to just put a smile on people's face would put a smile on your face. But it's all about that approach. And younger people, a lot of young people don't want to talk to you, really. They'd rather communicate with you through your phone, and that's obviously not going to work in fenestration. Okay,
Yeah.
this comes down to that confidence thing, doesn't it? So make yourself more confident. Some people get it naturally, some people have to work on it, but be confident in your approach to everything that you do.
Yeah, and how important is that for your career, that you've actually been successful, but also enjoyed it as well? It's been hard work, like to get to where you were. It's obviously taken some hard work, but actually that enjoyment was always there for the job, firstly, and for the people you're working with, and the company you're working with.
I spent many years with a couple of colleagues, and we'd be doing 30, 40,000 miles a year, um, uh, drinking, eating, entertaining, going to the races, going to the rugby, going to football, all those sorts of things. That's what builds relationships, and they are key critical. I think when we got to Deceuninck, we realised we had a challenge on our hands, but we sort of knuckled down and got on with it. And I think we opened, but I left at Christmas. But I think we brought on 90 fabricators. Well, That's quite significant, and some of them were significant. And in general, they're all good customers. Deceuninck is lucky to have good customers.
Yeah, nice. And lastly, for the main part of the podcast, you said you left the Deceuninck and sort of retired in inverted commas at Christmas time. Will we see you back in the glazing sector? Will potentially, or could you be enticed back into the sector? Would you? Is there a reason
I
why
don't
you would come back?
I don't want to come back full time
Yeah,
to employment, but as I said, I've got a couple of projects that I'm working on for a couple of companies, and I'm enjoying that because that keeps your mind lucid, George. And I have got 40 years experience, and I look at things in a slightly different way.
yeah,
And so I can be on one-on-ones or with groups. I can be um, invasive or questioning, as just to try and pull out the best result. But yeah, I'm going to keep my finger in the water, as it were. I've got other
yeah,
things that I want to do. My hobby and passion is sailing,
yeah,
and I want to do a lot of that. But the wonder of technology today, you can have remote meetings from anywhere, can't you?
yeah. Exactly. And do you think that you actually the time you've only spent a few months out of it since Christmas, but you've actually been able to sort of take a fresh perspective on the industry now you're on the sort of the outside looking in for the first time in 40 years.
Oh, very much so. I actually don't know where the first month went, if I'm honest. My wife presented me with a list of jobs she wanted doing, so
Yeah,
I attacked that with a bit of vitality. Then I've just been to the States for a number of weeks to have a nice vacation with my daughter, and we took my daughter and my wife. My best thing that's happened to my daughter was that she was ID'd in a restaurant in Florida, and she's 36, so that made her feel pretty good. But no, it does. Listen, I've had my head, like everybody that's been relatively successful in business, right? I've had my head down for 4 years
yeah,
trying to pull out the best result. Um, and it's given me a bit of breathing space. And yeah, to sit back, do I think we've made any mistakes? Of course, you make mistakes along the way, but the mark of a good company is how you pull yourself out of a situation, isn't it?
yeah,
If our service at Deceuninck was exemplary and our quality was exemplary, and sometimes the things that we did behind the scenes to make sure that it was were monumental. But if the customer doesn't know, then that's fine. As long
yeah,
as the order is, the product is usable and you've delivered it on time, etc., then that's what the game's all about. It's a lovely industry to be a part of. I know there's not that many people, probably more than I think. There's not that many people that have had a full term in it of nearly 40 years. There will be a few. I'm sure I'll get a few people reminding me of that.
yeah,
I've had an awful lot of fun, and I've met an awful lot of lovely people, some of the other sorts as well, but I've met an awful lot of lovely people. And the industry is becoming more professional, and people want to engage and have a thorough conversation to make sure that they're heading down the right track.
yeah. Nice. Well, we're going to move on to our quick fire question round now. It's something we do on every episode of getting you to answer without thinking about it too much. So yeah, I'll fire away with some quick fire questions, and yeah, first thing that comes to your head. So the first thing is, do you prefer talking over email or by phone?
Fun.
What's your favorite TV show or movie?
The Quiet Man movie. That's way before your time, mate.
Yeah, no, I definitely heard it.
I play it once a year on Boxing Day.
Nice. I think you've already said it, but what's your favorite sport?
Well, it was rugby, and my passion is now sailing. Yeah.
Okay, nice. What's your go-to meal if you're cooking at home or going out for a restaurant with wife and kids and that? What's the go-to meal?
Well, if I have to take them, it's usually a Thai or an Italian. But my favorite, I love an Indian. So
Nice. Where's your favorite place to visit in the world?
my favorite place to visit. Well, we've got lifelong friends that lived in California up until a recent job change, and we've been there 30 times to visit them with or without the kids. So I'm fortunate to have been well travelled, and I've been to most places in the world. I thought Sydney in Australia was the best place I'd been. I've been to California 25 times plus, but the place the best place I've ever been for a location is downtown Waikiki on Hawaii.
Amazing. And is there any
Uh,
place you haven't visited that you know now you've got a bit of more time to be able to see parts of it you haven't? Is there any places on the bucket list?
there are. I'll just tell you something funny about Hawaii because that's my way. If you queue up in a supermarket with a basket in Hawaii and you forget something, they put the basket on the floor, then leave their flip flops by the side of the basket, and nobody will walk past the basket or your flip flops till you come
Wow.
back. It's such a cool place. If you,
Yeah.
I know it's a long way, but if you get the opportunity to go there, what a fantastic place Hawaii is.
Yeah. Sounds perfect. And lastly, for the to bring it back to the industry, you're sort of in the outside looking in, but could potentially be back on the inside at some point. How do you see the industry looking generally in the next sort of year to 2 years?
I think that, listen, a lot of people won't like what I say here, right? But stop moaning, get on with it, start working. Yeah. When I was with the Epwin Group, we went through the financial crisis and we grew it year on year after that crisis. I've been at Deceuninck for 11 years and we started with a small business and we grew it into a relatively large business. And we've been through problems times there. You've got to have the right mindset. Just work hard and it'll happen.
Yeah. Perfect. And for our final part of the podcast, we like to get our guests to give a shout out. It can be, to friends, family, people in the industry or people outside the industry. So yeah, who's your shout out or shout outs for?
Okay, well, I'm going to use two. All of the people at Calm that helped me do a fantastic job. We all did a monumental job over the last 11 years, taking Deceuninck from A to B. So the entire team there, because everybody counts in teamwork. The second one is I always refer to him as boss. There's a gentleman called Bernard van der Beer in Belgium.
Yeah.
And Bernard is just a couple of years behind me. And what a great guy, full of wisdom. We were intuitive. We finished each other's sentences off, and I have thoroughly enjoyed working with him for the last 11 years. Gonna miss him.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Rob. Yeah, for joining us on Two Pigs in the Pod today. Yeah, I love obviously speaking to you again. And after our great press trip a few years ago, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see you back in the industry in some sort of place, or but enjoying the sailing as well.
Excellent. Thanks, George.
Well, that's it for today. So I hope you can join us for another episode soon. You can find Rob's episodes and all others on our website, www.peopleinglazing.co.uk, on our YouTube channel, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks once again to Rob for joining us, and see you again soon.